Hello, Misfit Nation. This is Dave Lucas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneurial, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like, and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit entrepreneur is Jon Ostenson. Jon is the nation's #1 national franchise broker. #1. He is also an author, investor, and international speaker specializing in an area that he calls non-food franchising, which incidentally is the name of his best-selling book. His business is called Fran Bridge Consulting, and he's helped thousands of entrepreneurs and investors succeed in franchise ownership. Jon served as president of an Inc. 500 franchise system and is a multi-brand franchise owner himself. So he walks the walk and he understands what it's like to be an entrepreneur building a business. If you're interested in either owning a franchise or starting your entrepreneur journey as a franchisee, I can't think of a better person to learn from. So let's jump in. Jon, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you on. And, this is a great topic because there are so many people that want to be an entrepreneur, they want to start a business, and they're not sure where to start. And the nice thing about franchises is they are a system. It's already built for you. The hard part is kind of been done. So why don't you take 5 minutes or so, though, and just tell us your story. How did you get to where you're at?
Yeah, like so many of your listeners, Dave, I was a wannabe-preneur for many years. I spent many years in the corporate world and had a good run, but had that itch to do something a little more entrepreneurial. So honestly, I kind of stumbled into franchising. I was working for a large Fortune 1000 company, had the golden handcuffs, the stock options, all that, but decided to step away and take a lower salary to step in with Shelf Genie franchise system, which became an Inc. 500 franchise. We experienced some really rapid growth. And the role I played there was supporting our franchise owners day in, day out, all across the country. And for me, it was an eye-opening experience to the power of franchising. I just saw how all these different walks of life and backgrounds could step into business ownership with a great support system. And I just saw their successes. So long story short, I ended up partnering with the founder. We spun off. We've invested in franchises ourselves. I've invested in franchises with other partners too, but just over 4 years ago, started on the consulting side with the extra bandwidth that I had. And that has just grown hockey stick growth. It's been so fulfilling being able to help, others step into business ownership, either for the first time or maybe as a complement to their current core business around the country.
So I guess where I want to start, we're going to go on a little bit of a journey through this and weave through it all, but why should an entrepreneur or someone consider franchising? What are the reasons that it makes sense to do that versus doing something yourself or building a business outside of a franchise?
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying franchising is not right for everyone. There are some clients of ours that I have to say, hey, you are too entrepreneurial. You want to put your thumbprints all over the business. May not be the best path. But for the vast majority, they say, hey, I would love to have some confidence going in and be able to have a plan to go execute against. So, the way I see it from a benefit standpoint would be on day one, you're starting on third base. You've got a playbook that has been proven out in other markets. It's all about executing against that. You've got a franchisor on the sidelines that acts as a coach that, the better you do, the better they do. So you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, to be cliche. Oftentimes I think it's overlooked, but you've got all these other franchise owners that are living the same thing in their markets day in, day out. So you're exchanging best practices and support back and forth. Obviously there's some bulk buying power potential, whether it be for products or for services, marketing agencies or bookkeeping firms. There's the power of having a larger entity. And then what's really interesting too is when you look to sell the business down the road and have that exit, there's been a lot of research done that's shown that franchises in like-kind industries to non-franchises actually trade at a multiple about 1.5 times the non-franchise. And so there's a lot of value when you go to resell it, assuming, you've been part of the good franchise system. And just like any industry, not every franchise system is created equal. And that's where we come in to help our clients identify the right one.
So with that being said, then how does someone evaluate a franchise, right? How can they know that they found the right one for them? I know you have a process you take your clients through, and maybe that's what it is. But, if somebody's sitting here going, I get it, franchise sounds great, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to know I've got the right one. What are the things I need to look for, right? So go ahead.
Yeah, it can certainly be daunting. There are roughly 4,000 franchise brands in the US alone. For us, we focus largely in areas outside of food and outside of hotels as well. So if you cut those out, that narrows you down by about 50%. Well, from there, we then apply filters. We look at the financial models, we look at the competitive advantages of the business, we look at what current owners in their system are saying about their experience. Take a strong look at the leadership team. I want to see a good blend of both uh, industry experience plus franchise experience represented there with their track record. So, all of those kind of come into play combined with what's going on in our client situation and in their market and the role they're looking to play in the business. And ultimately that leads us down to, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 12 opportunities that, if I'm in my client's shoes, here are the ones I want to be looking at there in the market. So that's how we think about it. I mean, certainly someone can go out and start Googling. The challenge is every brand's putting their best marketing foot forward. And there can be some smoke and mirrors. Even your top 100 franchise list or top 50 list, a lot of those companies pay to be on the list. And so it's more of a PR move. So it's not necessarily indicative of their strength. So it's really important to partner up with someone that understands behind the scenes, has those relationships with the franchisors, and kind of, lead you down the path because it's a big purchase, obviously.
Are there some specific like key areas that someone should look at when they're because you typically get I forget what it's called, but there's like the franchise agreement and different things that they have that from a legal standpoint, and there's like there's landmines that are in those things, right? So like, what are some of those things that people need to make sure they evaluate thoroughly, like in those agreements and stuff when they are looking at a franchise?
Yeah, every franchise system is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. They're required to have an FDD or franchise disclosure document. It's a document that you alluded to that it contains about 23 different categories. Within that, you've got what's called the item 7 and the item 19. Both of those probably get the most airtime. Your item 7 is your all in investment. They break that out. Your item 19 is financial representation that they make based on historical results. Their FDD has to be, they have to cross their T's, dot their I's.
Mhm.
Now, if you've never read one of these, yeah, you read it and it's like, wow, that's a really one sided document. It's pretty intimidating. But I think understanding the spirit of the law and not just the letter of the law is very important. So, understanding the why behind a lot of those clauses, oftentimes it's to protect you from other franchisees in the system that may go rogue and damage the brand. So, you want the franchisor to have rights to step in. Having been a franchisor myself, my goal was always to keep all the kids happy. If ever I ticked one or two off, then they would talk to their friends. All of a sudden, I had a lot of phone calls coming my way. So again, I think understanding kind of the why and the spirit of the law is very important. But it is great. Unlike just purchasing a business or just starting a business from scratch, you do have some really good audited financial results to kind of base your pro forma off of going in.
And so, are there any red flag areas to make sure that, like, for example, like, are there standards for like what a good uh, percentage is for the franchise to take, or the marketing budget, or that sort of thing? That if you're looking at that franchise or a franchise and it's like two times that, it's probably a red flag that maybe they're not giving as much to the franchisee as they should. Are there any things like that that people should know about?
Yeah, certainly. And we work with a number of franchise attorneys that we always refer to our clients. We always want them to go through. And what a franchise attorney can provide is, hey, when I look at this FED compared to the other 100 that I've looked at this past year, here's some things that jump out as being different. Or, hey, no, that's just really par for the course. That's how franchising is. Within those documents, though, I'd say, oftentimes your royalty, understanding the fees you pay, the royalty is oftentimes in that 6 to 8% of revenue range that you pay back to the franchisor. Yeah, that's obviously built into the financials. So you're looking at post royalty margins, but you know what I always encourage clients is, hey, as you're going through the process, ask the franchisor the hard questions about what value am I really getting for that royalty? Is there innovation in the business? Is there discounts as a result of bulk buying? Are these things that if I were to go start an XYZ business myself, I would be incurring these costs anyway, but instead, because it's franchising, I'm flowing it through the franchisor. So, yeah, that's how we coach our clients to think about it.
Um, you talk a lot about non-food franchising. And so on its surface, it kind of sounds, pretty self-explanatory, right? Non-food, chains, I guess, if you will. Why non-food franchising? Number one, and then number two, what are some examples of non-food franchises that you found that are, ones people should be looking at, or verticals maybe? But yeah, start with the distinction and go from there.
Yeah, first off, I'd say we've got nothing against the food guys. We need them. We appreciate them as consumers. But when you put your owner hat on, in most cases, my humble belief is there are easier ways to make money. There are opportunities that require maybe less employees, less operating hours, maybe less capex investment on the front end of the business. Maybe they're less susceptible to trends, or they carry higher margins because you don't have as much spoilage, if you will. So, when I kind of list it out like that, it's like, yeah, wait a minute, there are better ways to make money. But what we're seeing out there, I'd say the general theme is businesses that will do well regardless of the economy. We've been talking about a recession for a decade. What if the economy does turn south? What kind of business do you want to be in? And what I go back to is, hey, what are you going to be spending on? You'll always spend on your kids, your pets, your aging parents, to some degree, your home, your health. And so I'd say businesses that fall under those umbrellas, are really resonating out there. But it's fascinating. I mean, the backgrounds that we see, everyone from Wall Street attorneys to a whole lot of doctors we work with, to current business owners, to a lot of corporate executives. Most of them are stepping into an industry that they don't have experience in, but they recognize
Mm.
the opportunity. They say, hey, if I've got a franchisor that's going to coach me and my team, and so what they're getting involved in, it's things like home and property services. That's a
Mm.
huge category, everything from insulation to dumpsters to gutters to floor coating. It's businesses, in health and wellness. There's a really popular one right now that's men's health, and they do testosterone replacement therapy. I'd say that's one of the sexier ones we work with. A lot of the ones we work with are less sexy. But there's great opportunities in the pet space where they've been brought in technology, and whether it be on the grooming side or on the training side or the boarding side. We've done 12 placements year to date in the senior space where they've built a better
Mm.
mousetrap as far as how to provide in-home senior care. I think we've done 6 or 7 in youth soccer, which
Mm.
soccer's never been more popular in the U.S. And you've got the World Cup coming in a few years. And this is a
Mhm.
soccer program that does lessons and camps and clinics, kind of complements current soccer leagues. And so such variety. Of course, we still do some oil changes, we still do some gyms, but a lot of these other niches are where people are attracted.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of, I guess, what could be called boring businesses. Talked about that on the show before and stuff. That there are a lot of these businesses that are just great niches they're consistent, they're needed, all the time. They're not necessarily sexy, like you said, at all, or anything like that. But they are just a consistent, steady, solid businesses with good margins, typically better than like food franchising and stuff that do really well. I mean, everything from gutter cleaning services and power washing services to roof cleaning to all those things are more and more things that are just people use them, they need them, and they build a nice recurring stream if you've done work for a client once, right? They call you back the next year and so on, or maybe at a faster clip than that based on the need and what it is. But there are just some great opportunities in the world of boring businesses. You mentioned something as you were talking through there, and I think this is really really important when it comes to franchising. You mentioned like the training and the support side and everything. And I've heard horror stories of franchisees who have found a franchise that they like and moved into it, but there was no support, there was no training. They basically like, hey, here's the manual, good luck, right? And I think one of the best components for evaluating a franchise may be how they do their support and training. Talk to us a little bit about that side of it, and maybe what to look for on the support and training side to ensure you've got a franchisor that's really going to back you up and take care of you.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole, again, like any industry, not everyone's created equal, and you're going to have some bad players in franchising, just like you do elsewhere. But certainly, the vast majority of the ones that we work with have a really robust support system, and that starts with training there at the beginning. And that's something that through our exploration process you get exposed to. So there are no surprises. You know what that training looks like. You're able to visit the home office before you make that purchase. You're able to talk to other owners to hear about their experience, and you can ask them about their training and were there any support gaps, and they can talk about their financial ramp up and what that looked like. So really, the goal is to get you as much information as possible, and so your eyes wide open when you step in, because that's definitely part of the value add from a franchise system is the fact that they're training, and sometimes it's not just training you, but it's training your team. I was on the
Hmm.
phone with a franchisor this morning. They don't even require the franchisee to go to training as long as they send their general manager. And so, we're starting to see more and more of that executive model, if you will. There are some truly passive franchises out there where the franchisor can run the business for the franchisee. I'd say those are rare, but there are a handful that we work with. But more common is that semi-absentee or semi-passive approach. And that's where, if you're an executive and you want to keep your day job, let's say, or maybe you're a current business owner and you're running a business, but you want to expand that portfolio and get something going on the side, having that franchisor on the sideline, assuming it's a strong one, is going to be huge, because that's who your manager can go to on a day-to-day support needs basis instead of coming to you. Buck still stops with you as the owner, but
Right.
you don't have to be as involved in the day-to-day.
All right, John. So you mentioned absentee or semi-absentee owner type business, right? So maybe somebody does have a job, maybe another business, but they want to use the benefits of the franchise and its systems to expand their footprint. We do hear like, hey, this can be run part time and that sort of thing. But anyone who's ever run a business, kind of probably shakes their head a little bit, going, "Really, part time? I know what it takes to run a business, right?" So is that actually possible? And if so, can you give some examples of franchises that maybe fit that model?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible, but no, I never try to sugarcoat it, and totally agree with you. To stand up a business is a lot of hard work, especially in the beginning. However, again, franchising lends itself a little bit more than just a traditional startup to having the support system, so it can be done. If a client thinks it's going to take 5 hours a week out of the gate, I tell them plan for 10 to 15.
Mm.
You always want to plan for a little bit more. But there are really three different ownership styles. One would be the owner operator, where they step in and they run the business, and that's their job. We about a third of our clients are going down that path. Typically, their goal is to replace themselves in the not so distant future, and then move on to the next thing or expand the current business. The second would be the semi-passive or semi-absentee. I'd say probably 80% of the franchises we work with allow for this model, and that's where, again, you put a manager in place day one. you know, and we all know you can have a great
Right.
vehicle, you still have to have a good driver. So it comes down to aligning your incentives and interest, and managing that person correctly. The third piece would be the third style would be the investor model or passive model. Very rare in franchising. I think there are 5 or 6 companies today that do it. We've had clients buy into every one of them. They're obviously popular. I recently bought into another one myself. I live in Atlanta, but bought it down in Florida, and it's one that we're really excited about in the health and wellness space. But they offer a passive model. Franchisor runs the business. I get on a call maybe once a month, check in with the team, make decisions. I can see the financials every day in the system. It's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing that I don't have to be hands on.
So give us an example of what some of those franchises are. What are their, like, if it's okay to give us some of the names of ones like that, just to, give people an idea, maybe some things to consider and look at in the
Yeah. So
marketplace.
on the passive side, and I try not to get into the names just because I don't clear it with them ahead of time. But the one that I invested in is custom orthotics and footwear, catering kind of to the older population, as well as athletes. 3D printing technology around it.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in the insulation space, which is a $50 billion industry, highly fragmented, but it's kind of a needs based business. This one does spray foam insulation, and they've got some proprietary nature to the product. Another one is in mobile pet grooming. And so, again, I think it's 90 million pets in the country or something crazy like that. And so, a huge need for a business like that. There's another one that's in the pet space, and they do a combination of different things, dog walking to dog sitting to several other adjacent services. So, and we're trying to get more and more franchisors to step into that model. Not everyone's set up to be able to support it, but we're starting to see
Right.
more. I was talking with one yesterday. It's a painting franchise, and they're now offering the investor model too. So, from a franchisor standpoint, it gives them the chance to run the business the way it's supposed to be run, and it's kind of a unique hybrid. But as far as the semi-absentee, again, that's everything from the men's health that I talked about earlier, to senior care, to soccer, to um, just a wide variety and all these opportunities in the property services arena.
And if somebody works with you, then how does it work? Do they pay you a fee for it, or do you get paid by the franchisor? How does your model work?
our clients never pay us a nickel. It's a beautiful model.
Hmm.
It's very much like a real estate model. I'm essentially a
Hmm.
buyer's agent, if you will. And so, I'm working both sides, working with the franchisor. They're ultimately the ones, we get funded by the franchisors when placements happen. But, we work with over 600 of the top opportunities out there. We're always adding to that as we vet them. But no, our clients never pay us a nickel. If they went directly to a franchise or if they go through us, they're paying the same franchise fee.
So how are you compensated by the franchisor for
Yeah,
bringing
when
it
a
to the
placement
table?
happens, we get a referral fee when a placement happens.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's really important. I wanted to bring that up because a lot of people think that they have to pay for this sort of thing and that, and to engage a group like yours where you can help them in that way doesn't cost them anything and can make a world of difference. Another thing that I've heard you say that I think is interesting. I'd love to hear you expand upon it. I've heard you say that real estate investors are a great fit for franchising. Why is that?
Yeah, a combination of things. We've always had a lot of real estate clients, I'd say, probably 70, 80% of our clients invest in real estate too. I mean, myself included.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there's one, a lot of synergies from a actual business standpoint. We had a real estate broker recently buy a property management franchise to complement his business. We've had others that say, hey, we're already using these outside services. We might as well insource them and then offer them to others as well. And so there's just a lot of real estate related franchises. Then also, I think it's a common mindset, the alternative investment arena. And really, the third thing would be of late, there's just not many good real estate deals to be had out there. With interest rates high, inventory low, and yet there's a lot of capital on the sidelines. And so we've seen a lot of real estate investors coming our way saying, "Hey, we're interested in franchising." I mean, we've never seen so much interest in franchising. It's been hockey stick growth the last 2 to 3 years. I think COVID only
Right.
accelerated that, and then you've got some of the macro dynamics now around the market and interest rates where we're seeing a lot of interest in
Well, I
business
think that's a
ownership.
great
And
yeah, I think that's a great point around just COVID. And I think one thing that COVID did, well, it did a lot of things, but one I think positive thing that came out of COVID is that people started to really realize that they need to take control over kind of their income, their well being, their financial well being, and have moved to look for those opportunities to do that versus just being an employee. Right? It's amazing how things can change so fast. Right? And I think that's I've always said entrepreneurs are the key to everything. Entrepreneurs are what make the world go round. I mean, you don't have a government without entrepreneurship, right? There's no tax dollars without the entrepreneur to create the business that pays the employee, which then pays taxes, and the business itself pays taxes. So literally everything begins with entrepreneurship, and so it should be something that is more of the normal way to go, right? Is to be the entrepreneur versus even be an employee so much. And so that's something that I think came out of COVID is people realize that more, maybe not to the extent that I want them to help the world and solve a lot of the world's problems, which I think entrepreneurs are the answer to that. But I think more and more that's becoming something that is front center for people, and it sounds like you're seeing that too.
100%. No, I think people question the path they were on back then, and some continue to question it. Everyone moves at a different pace, but I hear from so many of them, hey, I've got confidence in myself. I don't know what that business idea is yet, but one thing I do know, I'm tired of building someone else's empire. I'm ready to build my own. Just continue to hear that all across the country.
You mentioned earlier, just going back a little bit, one of the franchises that you own in that orthopedic space. What are the other ones that you own and that you have today?
Yeah, I've got a multi-location driveway company here in Atlanta where I am. I've got an interest that I'm less operational in a pool cleaning business here in Atlanta. So I've always liked the property services arena. I've got one up in Minneapolis that I'm an investor in, and with that one, it's parking lot paving and
Mm.
line striping. So talk about a non-sexy niche, right? But
Yeah.
they've got great B2B recurring revenue clients, national accounts associated with that one. And then finally, there's one where I'm invested on the franchisor side and I help get it off the ground, a business called Art of Drawers. I will mention that once I'm part owner. And that's custom pull out shelving for your kitchens and pantries. Very
Mm.
similar to Shelf Genie that I mentioned, is actually the same founder behind it, but kind of an elevated niche up on it.
Was there any specific reason you chose that ones? Did you fall into them, or was it, they had these specific elements that you were looking for that made the difference for you that you decided to go that route?
Yeah, I think the property services is more of my background from an investment standpoint, and I just like the scalability of those. I like things that don't have a ton of competition. Like I
Mm,
wouldn't go into the mosquito space. You already have big brands in that space, very little differentiation, as an example. So I like ones where, again, like the driveway business. I mean, that's you know, no one can name a
mhm.
driveway business out there, right? And so I like those fragmented spaces that are very variable cost model oriented. I'm not putting in super heavy capex investments up front, so it's kind of a pay as you go and scale it up, put good people over it. I'll mention an example too of a client of
Mm,
ours, Nathan, who actually consults with some of our clients. Nathan has built up a portfolio of 6 different franchise businesses doing 35 million in revenue across 30 locations. What Nathan's been able to do is build up an organization, and he can attract great talent because he offers the ability to get promoted within, either into a different company eventually, or they'll acquire another company. So I love using that as kind of a case study of what can
mhm.
be. And I'd say a lot of our clients are on the path towards that. They're just not as far along as he is.
And are those businesses all in complementary type areas with each other, or are they completely separate?
Yeah, great question. In Nathan's case, they are somewhat complementary. I mean, they are spread across a number of markets. You don't have a direct
Mhm.
complement. But I'd say, probably 5 out of 6 are in the property services arena, but some cater a little bit more to a business customer, some more to a residential. So not directly complementary, but similar themes, similar people involved in the business. But we've got a lot of clients that will get into a diversification play. And so
Mm.
I've got a commercial real estate guy that just bought into a food truck business, which I don't do food often, but I love the characteristics behind this business. Or, we had a Wall Street attorney recently buy into a gutter business. We've had doctors buy into, I mean, just all sorts of different types of businesses. So, oftentimes, again, they don't have a background in it, but they see the opportunity. They like the franchisor and kind of feel comfortable with that support system. And yeah, if you're an existing business owner, it's a great way to diversify.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Shift gears a little bit. I want to talk just about your entrepreneur journey specifically too. Um, so obviously you were corporate world, and then you went into your business for yourself, and you've grown obviously over the years and added franchises and all of that. What would you say are 2 to 3 of the best lessons that you've learned on how to succeed as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, 2 to 3 of the best lessons. I would say, and I share this advice oftentimes when people say, "What makes a good franchisee?" Say, A, it's really having a plan, and whether that's one that's given to you by the franchise or that's one that you develop on your own. It's having a plan, being okay with going outside the plan, but trying to stick to it as long as you can and make iterations. Um, I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are, and one, you become like those you surround yourself with. Two, just kind of shortcuts success. Um, third, always go back to this: activity breeds activity. I love that line; it's always stuck with me. But what I found is oftentimes if I'm pursuing option A or option B, it's when I'm in pursuit that option C comes along. So I always encourage people to get off the couch, get going in one direction. Don't overanalyze. Do enough analysis, but let's get moving, and that's when good things happen.
Um, any big mistakes along the way that you've learned, and if you had to talk to an entrepreneur starting out, you're like, hey, don't do this, right? Any big mistakes that you've come across and had to get over? Not that we all
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah. One pops to mind. I had 2 partners in a business, and one was a little bit younger. He had proven himself in the tech world. Didn't have a ton of experience in the property services world that we'd brought him into. And so he was running the business and he was reporting back to us on a regular basis. Well, all of a sudden it dawned on us he's reporting a lot of revenue statistics and how we're growing really fast. He's not talking about the bottom line. Turns out he was overspending on marketing, and he told a great
Mm.
story, and we had rose colored glasses. We were busy with other things, and we didn't double check on him and pay enough attention. And ultimately, we ended up in a hole. We had to get rid of him, and ended up not being a pretty scene. He and my other partner wouldn't talk. I was kind of caught in the middle. I was the messenger between the two. But lots of lessons learned through that experience. So pick your partners wisely and monitor what they're doing closely.
Yeah, I think that's a really, I mean, excellent point when it comes to business. I've been fortunate to have some really, really great business partners over the years, but a true partnership is absolutely like a marriage, right? I mean, it's you have the good days, the bad days. There's days where you can't stand each other, and days where you really rely on each other. And it's best to find. You probably agree with this. It's best to find the yin and the yang of each other, right? You don't want two partners that are exactly the same. You want to complement each other's shortcomings, if you will, and kind of fill each other's gaps in that sense. And that I learned that I was I was fortunate that the first big partnership I ever had was like that, and I learned that then, and have been able to go and use those lessons and everything for the next partnerships and stuff. But I found that partnerships are a great way to even start and run a business because you do fill those gaps. You're not on the island so much, and it makes it easier if you do that well. I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. And that's one of the things inherently that I love about franchising is that you have that partnership with the franchisor. But again, to my
That's a good
point,
point.
you want to pick that partner wisely. So, and I will say, even within franchising, even though you have that partner, it's still very common to see partners buy in together on a business.
Um, Last question before we get to your Misfit 3. Are there any other things surrounding franchising or buying, even selling franchises that people should understand or know?
Yeah, I'd say the one thing we didn't hit on yet, it would be the funding side. We oftentimes get asked, what if I don't have X amount to put down? And you just give a ballpark figure. I mean, certainly there's some seven-figure placements that we do out there, but by and large, when you look at the franchise fee, the startup cost, and several months of working capital built in, oftentimes you're in the, I'd say 150 to 400 range. 150,000 to 400,000. Some of our clients are using cash. Quite a few are using maybe 50,000 in cash plus an SBA loan. That's very, very common. Some are using an old retirement plan, rolling it over through what's called the ROBS program. Certainly, some are using other means like a HELOC or a margin loan, but lots of different ways to get involved.
No, that's a really great point too. I think that's something that, and I've seen some franchises, especially in kind of that home space too, that startup costs as low as like 30,000 and stuff too. So it is economical, and I imagine you can get the return on investment. Okay, it's time for John's Misfit 3. These are the three things that he wants you to take that you can put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth tomorrow and you can only leave behind your three best pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would that be? So, John, what are your Misfit 3?
Well, I'm going to try. You've had so much great wisdom over the years. I'm going to try to hit on three that haven't been touched on yet. So, categorize these in health, relationships, and finance. For the health side, there's something called superhuman protocol that I've been doing, and not that people want to necessarily look like me, but I can vouch for its effectiveness. One would be a PEMF mat. Two would be what's called EWAT, exercise with oxygen therapy. And then third would be red light therapy. And when you combine all three of these in that sequence, you open up your cells to oxygen. You're able to receive the oxygen then in its purest form, and then you're able to essentially push it into your cells. And oxygen is what life is all about. With absence of oxygen is death. And so, lots of research out there would encourage people to check that out. It's called the Superhuman Protocol. Secondly, on the relationship side, and this is personal growth too, but the power of masterminds. And I've been a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization (EO) for many years. They also have EO Accelerator that if you're doing 250,000 in revenue, you can qualify for that. EO itself is about 1 million. You have to qualify for, but highly recommend that. Get plugged into a forum, exchange best practices, hold each other accountable, learn from others, and have fun doing it. Third would be on the finance side. If you're a business owner and you've got kids, find a way to integrate them in the business and hire them in. I pay my kids 12 or 13,000 a year, whatever that minimum is, that I don't have to file a tax return. Well, then I take half of that and roll it into a Roth IRA. So my kids, they're young, but they're getting started at an early age. Of course, I've got my list of things that they do in the business, whether it be cleaning my office or packaging our books or what have you. So, highly suggest that. And if you need a place to start on the business side and you're not in business ownership yet, would love to offer a free copy of our book, Non-Food Franchising, to all of your listeners, Dave. Just come out to our
So,
website and we'll provide some downloadable links.
yeah. Excellent, excellent, an excellent Misfit 3. In fact, if people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. Leave your email address. We'll put you into our monthly newsletter. We put out some great content, but I'll also have my assistant reach out and send you a copy of our book. And if you'd like to take a next step and actually get on a call, I'd be happy to chat. You can just let her know that as well.
Excellent. We'll link to all that in the show notes, the best show notes in the business for reasons I'll talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, welcome. It is such an honor to have you with us. And thank you so much for watching or listening. And I hope that you become a regular subscriber, regular listener. And for those of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. As part of my personal growth routine, every single week I go back through these episodes with amazing guests like Jon, and I take the best pieces of wisdom and insight and tips and strategies and stuff, and I share those with you. So check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review. Like and comment on it. Help share Jon's message because I say this in every episode. We all know one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Jon shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So go out and share this with others. And again, Jon, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing all your wisdom and your insight.
Thanks for having me, Dave.